The stars hung peacefully beyond the observation deck of the Vaughn command vessel. Admiral Torque stood motionless, his lower arms folded behind him, his pale gray skin catching the glow from the small azure world that dominated the viewing display. "What a small planet," he remarked. "Barely worth our effort." His deputy, Krell, moved closer. "Our readings indicate they possess basic capabilities for traveling through space. They've put a modest station in orbit around their world, along with several crewed satellites." Torque waved one of his lower hands dismissively. "Just another race to bring into the Confederation. The Council wants us to return with at least 3 new client species from this region. Should we follow the usual first contact protocol?" Krell inquired. Torque paused to think. The usual protocol required months of watching before making contact. It meant learning their languages, understanding their societies, and finding ways to approach them diplomatically. "No," he decided. "These humans look primitive. We'll use the direct method. Show them our power, then demand they surrender. It's worked on the last 4 planets." Krell appeared uncertain. "Sir, our intelligence team hasn't finished analyzing human behavioral patterns yet." "What's there to analyze?" "Just look at them." Torque gestured toward the display, showing pictures of Earth's cities, vehicles moving along roads, people living their ordinary lives. They still use fossil fuels for energy. They battle each other over imaginary lines on maps. They're split into hundreds of competing groups. They're centuries behind our development. "As you command, Admiral," Krell replied, returning to his station. Torque felt satisfied. This would be simple. The Vaughn had taken over dozens of planets using this approach. Demonstrate power. Demand surrender. Put in a puppet government. Take resources. Simple and efficient. "Position the fleet," he commanded. "Hit their space station first, then strike 3 of their biggest military facilities. Nothing too destructive, just enough to prove we're serious." The enormous Vaughn vessels glided silently through the void. Approaching Earth like predators stalking prey, on Earth, chaos erupted in the United Nations emergency meeting in New York. "They appeared from nowhere," the Secretary General shouted, struggling to restore calm as delegates from 193 nations all spoke at once. "Please, we need order." General William Harris from the United States Space Force stood stiffly beside the podium, waiting for his turn to speak. His lined face showed no feeling, but his fists were clenched tight at his sides. Finally, the room grew quiet enough for him to step forward. "At 6 in the morning Universal Time, our deep space monitoring systems detected multiple objects entering our solar system," he stated. "By 6:12, they'd reached Earth's orbit. At 6:15, they destroyed the International Space Station using a weapon we can't identify. All 50 people on board are believed dead." Shocked gasps filled the chamber. The Secretary General briefly closed his eyes. "At 6:17, they hit military bases in 3 countries, the United States, China, and Russia. We estimate over 300 casualties. At 6:20, they sent this message to every communication device across the planet." General Harris nodded to a technician, and a deep robotic voice echoed through the hall. "People of Earth, we are the Vaughn Confederation. Your planet now falls under our protection. Disarm your weapons. Dissolve your governments. Prepare to receive our representatives. You have 48 hours to comply or face planetary correction. Resistance is pointless." The room burst into noise again. The Chinese delegate shouted about independence. The Russian diplomat called for immediate military action. The British ambassador urged negotiations. General Harris waited until the Secretary General restored quiet again. "There's something else you must know," he said. "Something very few people on Earth are aware of." He pressed a button on his wrist device, and the lights dimmed. A 3-dimensional image appeared above the room's center. A sleek, angular craft unlike anything most people had seen before. In 1986, a spacecraft crashed in the Mojave Desert. It wasn't from Earth. Its pilot died in the crash, but the technology was mostly undamaged. For the past 38 years, a secret group of scientists from 12 nations has been studying and reverse engineering this technology. Stunned whispers spread through the room. After the Chinese found a similar craft in the Gobi in 1998, and the Russians discovered another in Siberia in 2001, we understood we needed to collaborate. The Earth Defense Alliance formed in secret in 2005. The image changed to show an enormous underground complex beneath the lunar surface. We've been building these, The picture shifted to reveal 3 warships, 1 finished and 2 nearly complete. We call the first one Thunderbolt. It uses everything we've learned. It's ready to launch. The Secretary General stared at the General. You've been constructing warships on the moon without United Nations approval? With respect, sir, we didn't have time for debates and committees. We needed to prepare, General Harris replied, looking around the room. And it appears we were right. Deep beneath the lunar surface, Captain Jack Miller walked through the gleaming passages of the Thunderbolt. Crew members rushed past him, preparing for departure. After years of secret training, the moment had arrived. Miller entered the bridge where Lieutenant Anna Rodriguez was reviewing system status. "How's she looking, Lieutenant?" Miller asked. "All systems operational, Captain," Rodriguez replied without glancing up from her display. "The gravitational compression cannon is online. Jump drive is calibrated. Shields at full power." Miller settled into the captain's seat. "The aliens destroyed the space station. Tom Chen was up there. We went through flight school together." Rodriguez finally looked up. "I'm sorry, sir." Miller nodded. "The best way to honor the dead is to protect the living." He pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All hands, this is the captain. In a few minutes, we're going to introduce ourselves to the aliens who think Earth is defenseless. They destroyed our space station. They killed our people. They think we're primitive and helpless." He paused. "Let's prove them wrong." A cheer resonated through the vessel. Back at the United Nations, representatives had moved from shock to planning. The Secretary General had just called for a vote on a unified Earth response when the chamber doors flew open. A woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes strode in, flanked by security. Director Helen Gray of the Earth Defense Alliance rarely made public appearances. "The vote isn't needed," she announced. "The Thunderbolt launches in 20 minutes. I've come to explain what happens next." She walked to the podium confidently. "For decades, we've prepared for this moment. While you argued about borders and trade agreements, we built what we needed to defend Earth. While you focused on election cycles, we looked to the stars and saw both opportunity and danger." Director Gray brought up her own 3-dimensional display showing the Vaughn fleet in Earth's orbit. "The Vaughn think they're dealing with a primitive species. They expect us to panic or fight among ourselves." She smiled coldly. "We're about to surprise them." General Harris joined her at the podium. "The Thunderbolt carries technology beyond what the Vaughn will expect from us. Our response to their demand will be delivered personally by Captain Miller." "What is our response?" the Secretary General asked. Director Gray's smile disappeared. "We're going to show them that humanity isn't to be trifled with." After that, she looked around the room. "We hope they're smart enough to leave." Admiral Torque was enjoying a meal when Krell interrupted him. "Admiral, the humans are sending a response." Torque sighed. "Let me guess. They're begging for more time, offering resources?" "No, sir," Krell said, looking puzzled. "They sent a single message. You have made a grave mistake." Torque laughed. "Bold words from a species about to become our servants. Any sign they're preparing their primitive weapons?" "No, sir, but our sensors detect something launching from behind their moon." Torque wiped his mouth and stood. Probably a desperate attempt to evacuate their leaders. "Let's return to the bridge and prepare for the next phase." As Torque walked confidently through his ship, he had no idea that Earth's response was already on its way, and it wasn't what he expected at all. Admiral Torque strolled onto the bridge of his command vessel with the confidence of a conqueror. The main display showed a single small ship emerging from behind Earth's moon. "That's their response?" Torque laughed. "One tiny vessel." Krell studied his readouts with concern. "Sir, I'm detecting energy patterns that don't match any known human technology." "Of course not," Torque said. "They probably threw together whatever they could in desperation." He waved dismissively. "Send 3 interceptors to destroy it. Let's demonstrate what happens to those who defy the Vaughn Confederation." Krell hesitated. "Should we scan it more carefully first? Why waste time?" "It's just a human ship," Torque replied, settling into his command seat. "Let's finish this so we can begin the occupation." 3 sleek Vaughn interceptors broke formation and moved toward the lone human vessel. On the main display, Torque watched with amusement. This would be over in seconds. Captain Jack Miller sat calmly in the command seat of the Thunderbolt. The bridge crew worked with quiet focus, each member concentrated on their station. Through the main viewport, Miller could see 3 alien ships approaching. 3 interceptors incoming, Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from the tactical station. Weapon systems charging. Miller nodded. Just as we expected. Are our systems masked? Yes, sir, Rodriguez said. They're seeing only what we want them to see. A conventional thruster signature and minimal weapons capability. Good, Miller said, leaning forward. Prepare the gravitational compression cannon. Target the lead interceptor only. And Lieutenant Thompson, be ready with that jump maneuver we practiced. Ready, Captain, Thompson replied from the helm. Miller took a deep breath. Humanity's first real space battle was about to begin. Everything they had worked for in secret was about to be tested. Let them make the first move, he ordered. On the Vaughn command vessel, Krell watched the interceptors close in on the human ship. The human vessel isn't attempting to evade, he reported. Their weapons appear minimal. Torque snorted. As expected. They're probably trying to surrender. Wait, Krell said suddenly, leaning closer to his display. The human ship is accelerating. On the screen, the human vessel suddenly shot forward at a speed that should have been impossible for Earth technology. It moved in a pattern that made no sense until Krell realized it was systematically avoiding the targeting locks of the Vaughn interceptors. How are they doing that? Torque demanded, rising from his seat. They shouldn't even be able to detect our targeting systems. Before Krell could respond, the human ship stopped abruptly. A pulse of blue-white energy erupted from its front section, striking the lead Vaughn interceptor. Instead of exploding, the interceptor seemed to collapse in on itself, shrinking rapidly until it was just a small, dense sphere of matter. Silence fell over the Vaughn bridge. What just happened? Torque asked, his voice barely audible. I don't know, Krell admitted. That weapon technology is unknown to us. Direct hit, Rodriguez announced on the Thunderbolt. Gravitational compression successful. Miller nodded. Now for Phase 2. Lieutenant Thompson, execute jump. Jumping now, Captain, Thompson replied, her fingers dancing over her controls. The stars blurred around them as the Thunderbolt disappeared from its position, only to reappear behind the 2 remaining Vaughn interceptors. Fire conventional missiles, Miller ordered. Full spread. Before the Vaughn ships could react to the Thunderbolt's impossible jump, multiple missiles streaked toward them. Both interceptors exploded in silent bursts of light and debris. Targets destroyed, Rodriguez reported. Miller stood up. Broadcast on all frequencies. Make sure the main Vaughn fleet can hear us. Rodriguez nodded, opening the channel. Miller squared his shoulders. This is Captain Jack Miller of the Earth Defense Ship Thunderbolt. The destruction of your vessels was mercy compared to what comes next. You have 24 hours to leave our system. If any Vaughn ship remains after that time, we will consider it an act of continued aggression and respond accordingly. He signaled Rodriguez to cut the transmission. Now we wait, Miller said. Let's see how they respond to an unexpected setback. Admiral Torque couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. 3 of his best interceptors destroyed by a single human ship in less than a minute. It was impossible. It violated everything he knew about human technological capabilities. Send all data to the analysis team, he ordered. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Krell was already working. The human ship displayed technology that should be centuries beyond their development stage. That weapon compressed matter to near black hole density, and they have jump drive capability. Other officers on the bridge looked nervous. The Vaughn had encountered many species, but none had ever surprised them like this. It must be a fluke, Torque insisted. Perhaps they captured technology from another race. One ship doesn't change anything. We have a whole fleet. Admiral, one of the communication officers called out, we're receiving transmissions from the planet. Multiple human governments are broadcasting the same message. Show me, Torque commanded. The screen filled with the image of a stern-faced human female with gray hair. I am Director Helen Gray of the Earth Defense Alliance. What you have witnessed is just one of our ships, the Thunderbolt. We have others. We have been preparing for this moment for decades. The choice is yours, Admiral Torque. Leave in peace or face destruction. Torque felt a chill. How did they know his name? In the United Nations chamber, representatives from Earth's nations watched the battle unfold on the large screens. Cheers erupted when the Thunderbolt destroyed the 3 alien vessels. Director Gray stood at the center of the room, her face showing no emotion. The Thunderbolt performed exactly as expected, she announced. But this is just the beginning. The Vaughn fleet consists of 27 ships. They won't retreat based on one defeat. What happens next? The Secretary General asked. General Harris stepped forward. We reveal our full hand. The Valiant and the Defiant are nearly complete. We speed up their preparation and launch within 20 hours. And then? The Russian representative asked. Director Gray's expression hardened. Then we show the Vaughn Confederation that humanity is not to be conquered. We have studied their technology through the crashed ships. We improved upon it. We developed countermeasures. She turned to address all the representatives. For decades, the most brilliant minds from all our nations worked in secret beneath the lunar surface. While Earth argued and fought over minor differences, the Alliance prepared for this day. How did you keep this secret? The Chinese representative demanded. Gray smiled slightly. We didn't, not completely. There have always been rumors, sightings of unidentified flying objects, conspiracy theories about government secret projects. Sometimes the best place to hide a secret is in plain sight, surrounded by enough false information that the truth seems impossible. She pointed to the screen showing the Vaughn fleet. Right now, Admiral Torquay is deciding whether to retreat or attack with full force. He's proud, arrogant. He won't retreat after one defeat. So we're still in danger, the Secretary General said. Yes, Gray admitted. But for the first time since they arrived, the Vaughn are afraid. They don't understand what just happened. They thought they knew everything about us, but they were wrong. General Harris nodded. The greatest advantage in any conflict is surprise. We've achieved that. Now we need to press it before they recover. On the screen, the Thunderbolt moved to a position between Earth and the Vaughn fleet, a single ship facing an armada. Captain Miller has his orders, Gray said. The next move belongs to the Vaughn. As if on cue, the Vaughn fleet began to move. Admiral Torque paced the bridge of his command vessel, his 4 hands clenched into fists. The main display showed the human ship, the Thunderbolt, hovering between his fleet and the blue planet. One small vessel defying an armada. This is unacceptable, he growled. One lucky victory doesn't change the outcome. We are the Vaughn Confederation. We have conquered dozens of worlds. Krell approached cautiously. Admiral, the analysis team has completed their initial report on the human vessel. And? Torque demanded. The technology they displayed isn't stolen or accidental. It's purposeful. The gravitational weapon appears to be of their own design. It's more advanced than our own compression technology. Torque slammed a fist onto a nearby console. Impossible! They were burning fossil fuels just a century ago. There's more, Krell continued. We've been monitoring their communications and entertainment broadcasts for years, but we may have misunderstood something important. He brought up images on a smaller screen, scenes from human movies and television shows showing aliens invading Earth, humans fighting back, stories of first contact gone wrong. They've been imagining scenarios like this for generations, Krell explained. Their entertainment is filled with stories about defending against alien invasions, fiction, Torque dismissed. Fantasies, perhaps, Krell agreed. But it means they've been psychologically preparing for this moment for a very long time. Torque considered this, then his expression hardened. It changes nothing. Prepare the fleet for a full attack. Target their major population centers. Let's see how they respond when millions of their people are at risk. On the bridge of the Thunderbolt, Captain Miller watched the Vaughn fleet begin to move into attack formation. They're preparing for a major strike, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. Energy readings suggest they're charging weapons. Miller nodded. Just as we expected. Are our stealth drones in position? Yes, sir, Rodriguez replied. All 20 drones are attached to their ships, including the command vessel. We have full access to their targeting systems and shield frequencies. And our friends? Miller asked. Rodriguez smiled. The Valiant and the Defiant are ready. They've completed final checks and are waiting for your signal. Miller took a deep breath. It's time to show the Vaughn what they're really dealing with. Open a channel to Admiral Torque's ship. On the main display, the alien admiral's face appeared. His gray skin had a purple tinge that Miller's team had identified as a sign of anger in the Vaughn species. Admiral Torque, Miller began, before you launch your attack, there's something you should understand about humans. Save your words, human, Torque snapped. Nothing you say will change what happens next. I think it will, Miller countered calmly. You see, Admiral, you made a fundamental mistake when you assessed our species. You looked at our technology, our politics, our divisions, and you made assumptions. Miller stood from his seat facing the display directly. What you failed to consider is our nature. Humans evolved as prey animals who eventually became apex predators. Unlike the Vaughn, who evolved in peaceful environments with plentiful resources, humans developed on a harsh world where we had to fight for survival every step of the way. In the underground command center beneath the United Nations building, Director Gray and world leaders watched the exchange. "What is Miller doing?" the Secretary General asked. "Giving the aliens a history lesson in the middle of a battle?" Gray smiled thinly. "Captain Miller knows exactly what he's doing. Part of warfare is psychological. He's explaining to the Vaughn why they've already lost." On his command vessel, Torque listened with growing unease as the human captain continued. "War strategy, adaptation. These aren't just skills for humans, Admiral. They're encoded in our very nature. We expect things to go wrong. We plan for disasters. We imagine worst-case scenarios and prepare for them." Miller's expression remained calm, but his eyes were intense. "When we found that first crashed alien ship decades ago, we didn't just study it. We improved it. We saw the flaws in its design and fixed them. We understood its principles and expanded on them. The gravitational compression cannon was based on a small tool we found in the wreckage. You use the technology to move heavy objects. We weaponized it." Torque felt a chill run through him. "You're bluffing. One ship cannot stand against a fleet." Miller smiled. "Who said anything about one ship?" At that moment, on the dark side of the moon, massive bay doors opened in the secret facility. Two ships similar to the Thunderbolt, but each with unique modifications, rose silently from the lunar surface. The Valiant, sleek and fast with enhanced shield technology, and the Defiant, heavier and armed with a variety of weapon systems, moved quickly to join their sister ship. Back on the Thunderbolt, Miller continued his explanation to Torque. "When you launched your attack, your weapons targeted our space station and military bases, but humanity's real strength wasn't there. It was hidden, preparing, waiting for a moment like this." Miller nodded to Rodriguez, who pressed a series of commands on her display. Across the Vaughn fleet, ship after ship suddenly reported system failures. Targeting computers went offline. Shield generators reset to minimum power. Communication systems filled with static. "What is happening?" Torque demanded as alerts sounded across his bridge. "Your stealth technology is quite good, Admiral," Miller explained. "But again, there were flaws we noticed. Your ships can't detect objects below a certain size if they're magnetically attached to your hull. While we were talking, we activated the stealth drones we placed on each of your ships during the past few hours." A new alarm sounded on the Vaughn command vessel. "Two more human vessels detected," Krell shouted, coming from behind the moon. On the display, Miller's expression remained calm. "Admiral Torque, I suggest you reconsider your attack. Your weapons are temporarily disabled. Your shields are at minimum power. And now you're outnumbered by ships with superior technology." In the United Nations Command Center, cheers erupted as the Valiant and the Defiant appeared on the screens, flanking the Thunderbolt in a perfect attack formation. Director Gray remained silent, watching the Vaughn fleet formation falter as ship after ship reported systems failures. "Is this victory?" the Chinese representative asked quietly. "Not yet," Gray replied. "The Vaughn still outnumber us, but we've shown them something they didn't expect. That humans aren't easy prey." On his command vessel, Admiral Torque stared at the three human warships now facing his fleet. His tactical advantage was gone. The easy conquest he had promised the Confederation Council now seemed impossible. "How?" he whispered. "How did they advance so quickly?" On the display, Captain Miller answered as if he had heard the question. "Fear, Admiral, the greatest motivator of all. For generations, humans looked to the stars with both hope and fear. We hoped we weren't alone. We feared what might come if we weren't." Miller's voice grew harder. "And so we prepared. We built these ships not because we wanted war, but because we expected it. It's in our nature to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." A new voice spoke up from somewhere off-screen on the human ship. "Signal from Earth, Captain. Director Gray has authorized Phase 3. Miller nodded. "Admiral Torque, you have a choice to make. Retreat now and tell your Confederation that Earth is not open for conquest. Or stay and learn firsthand why so many species throughout history have underestimated humans to their regret." The transmission cut off, leaving Torque staring at the three human warships positioned between his fleet and their target. Behind him, Krell spoke quietly. "Admiral, our weapons and shields will reset in approximately 10 minutes. But," Torque demanded, but I'm not certain it will matter. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we didn't think possible. If they've hidden these 3 ships, what else might they be hiding? Torque looked back at the display, at the small blue planet beyond the human ships. He had come to conquer a primitive world. Instead, he had awakened something unexpected and dangerous. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Torque felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Admiral Torque stood motionless on his bridge as the officers around him waited for orders. The 3 human warships maintained their position between the Vaughn fleet and Earth. Minutes ticked by as ship systems slowly came back online. Finally, Torque made his decision. "Order the fleet to fall back to the edge of the solar system," he commanded. "We will regroup and reassess." Krell looked shocked. "Admiral, retreat." "The Confederation has never—" "This is not retreat," Torque snapped. "It is strategic repositioning. When our systems are fully functional, we will return with a proper attack plan." The officers hurried to carry out his orders. As the Vaughn ships began to move away from Earth, Torque noticed something on the tactical display. "There are 5 of our ships not responding to the withdrawal order," he said. Krell checked the readings. "Those vessels suffered the most severe systems failures, Admiral. They are adrift." Torque's expression hardened. "Leave them. They will serve as a distraction while we regroup." "Sir?" Krell said hesitantly. "There are over 2,000 crew members on those ships." "They knew the risks of service," Torque replied coldly. "The mission comes first." As the main Vaughn fleet began to move away, Torque watched the screen with narrowed eyes. "This isn't over, humans," he muttered. "Not by any measure." On the Thunderbolt, Captain Miller watched the Vaughn fleet retreat. "They're abandoning 5 of their ships," Rodriguez reported. "The disabled vessels are being left behind." Miller frowned. "Life signs?" "Substantial," Rodriguez confirmed. "Each ship has hundreds of crew members." Miller thought for a moment. "Contact the Valiant and the Defiant. We're going to secure those ships and rescue the crews." His executive officer looked surprised. "Rescue, sir? They're the enemy." "They're people," Miller corrected. "And this is how we show the difference between us and Admiral Torque." Hours later, in the makeshift holding area aboard the lunar base, Director Gray walked among the rescued Vaughn. The aliens sat in groups, their forearms wrapped around themselves in what the human experts identified as a defensive posture. Gray approached one Vaughn who sat apart from the others. Unlike most of the rescued crew who wore simple uniforms, this one had insignia that suggested higher rank. "I am Director Helen Gray," she introduced herself through a translator. "And you are?" The alien looked up. "Science Officer Mira of the exploration vessel Horizon." "You're being treated well?" Gray asked. Mira tilted her head. "Yes, better than expected. Why didn't you execute us?" Gray sat down across from the alien. "That's not how humans do things." "Admiral Torque said humans were savages," Mira said. "That your species was divided and primitive." "We are divided," Gray admitted. "We argue, we compete. We even fight among ourselves. But when faced with an external threat, we unite." Mira considered this. "The ships that defeated our fleet were built by all humans together?" "By the best minds from many nations," Gray confirmed. "Working in secret for decades." "Why in secret?" Mira asked. Gray smiled slightly. "Because while we're good at uniting against external threats, we still don't fully trust each other. Old habits die hard." Mira seemed to process this information. "Your Captain Miller said humans evolved as prey animals who became predators." "Is this true?" Yes, Gray nodded. "For much of our early history, we were hunted by larger, stronger creatures. We survived through intelligence, cooperation, and tool-making. Eventually, we became the dominant species on our planet." "This explains much," Mira said thoughtfully. "The Vaughn evolved as the unchallenged dominant species. We never faced significant threats until we reached space." Gray stood up. "Officer Mira, I have a proposition for you." Admiral Torque's command vessel had reached the edge of the solar system when the communication officer called out. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship Thunderbolt." Torque scowled. "Ignore it." "Sir," Krell interjected, "they're using our secure Confederation frequency." "How did they put it through?" Torque ordered, his voice tight with anger. Captain Miller's face appeared on the screen. Behind him stood a familiar figure. Science Officer Mira. "Admiral Torque," Miller began, "we've rescued the crews you abandoned. They're being treated as guests, not prisoners." Torque's upper hands clenched. Officer Mira, what have you told them? Nothing they hadn't already discovered for themselves, Mira replied calmly. Admiral, the humans have decoded our navigation data. They know the location of all Confederation worlds. Torque felt his blood run cold. Impossible. I've examined their technology, Mira continued. Their faster-than-light drives are significantly faster than ours. Even now, they could reach the Confederation capital before we could return to warn them. Miller spoke again. But that's not what we want, Admiral. The Earth Defense Alliance is sending me on a diplomatic mission to your Confederation. We're departing within the hour. To do what? Torque demanded. To negotiate peace, Miller said simply. To establish Earth's sovereignty and discuss reparations for your unprovoked attack. Torque laughed harshly. The Confederation doesn't negotiate with primitives. We're not primitive, Miller interrupted. And deep down you know that now. You have a choice, Admiral. Race back to warn your people about the terrible humans coming to destroy them, or return with us and help establish peaceful relations. Before Torque could respond, Miller continued. Science Officer Mira has agreed to serve as a cultural liaison. She believes there's much our species could learn from each other. She'll be traveling with us aboard the Thunderbolt. Mira nodded. Admiral, the humans could have destroyed our ships. Instead, they saved our people. Perhaps the Confederation's policy of conquest should be reconsidered. Torque's face darkened with rage. This is treason. No, Mira replied. It's evolution, adapting to new information. Isn't that the foundation of science? Miller spoke again. We'll be departing for your capital system in 20 minutes, Admiral. You're welcome to follow us or try to beat us there, but I should mention our faster-than-light drive is roughly 3 times faster than yours. The transmission ended, leaving Torque staring at a blank screen. What are your orders, Admiral? Krell asked quietly. In the Lunar Base Command Center, Director Gray watched as the Thunderbolt prepared for its unprecedented journey to the heart of the Vaughn Confederation. You're taking a huge risk, Jack, she said over the secure channel to Captain Miller on the screen. Miller nodded, but a necessary one. We've shown them we can fight. Now we need to show them we prefer peace. And if the Confederation refuses to negotiate? Gray asked. Then having seen their capital world firsthand will give us a strategic advantage. Miller replied practically. But I don't think it will come to that. Officer Mira isn't the only Vaughn who questions their policy of conquest. There are others in their government who might be receptive to a new approach. Gray nodded. Your diplomatic team is ready, the best minds from a dozen nations. And our technical advantages? Miller asked. Very real, Gray confirmed. The improvements we made to the faster-than-light drive will get you there well ahead of Admiral Torque, and the upgrades to the Thunderbolt's defensive systems should prevent any surprises. Miller looked solemn. Earth will be vulnerable with us gone. The Valiant and the Defiant remain here, Gray reminded him, along with the new defense platforms we've deployed. We'll be fine, Jack. Go make history. As the communication ended, Gray turned to the Secretary General who stood nearby. Will this work? He asked. Gray watched on the large monitor as the Thunderbolt moved into position for its jump to faster-than-light speed. Captain Miller understands something fundamental about humanity, she said. We're at our best when we balance our capacity for destruction with our desire for peace. The Vaughn need to understand that we can be either their worst nightmare or their most valuable ally. The choice is theirs. On the screen, the Thunderbolt suddenly elongated and vanished in a flash of light, jumping to faster-than-light speed, carrying humanity's representatives toward the stars. Back at the edge of the solar system, Admiral Torque watched the human ship disappear and made his own decision. The arrival of a human warship in the Vaughn capital system caused immediate panic. Defense platforms activated. Patrol ships scrambled. The Confederation Supreme Council gathered in emergency session as alerts sounded across the massive space station that served as the seat of government for 7 allied species. How did they get here so quickly? Demanded High Counselor Venn, the eldest of the Vaughn leaders. Admiral Torque's warning arrived only hours ago. Their technology is more advanced than we thought, replied Defense Minister Lorne. The Admiral was quite clear about that in his message. The council chamber fell silent as the main display showed the human vessel, the Thunderbolt, holding position just outside weapons range of the capital station. It made no aggressive moves. It simply waited. They're hailing us, announced the communication officer. High Counselor Venn straightened his ceremonial robes. Very well. Let us see what these humans want. The screen changed to show a human male in a formal uniform. I am Captain Jack Miller of the Earth defense ship Thunderbolt. On behalf of the people of Earth, I request permission to send a diplomatic delegation to meet with the Confederation Supreme Council. Venn's 4 hands tightened around his staff of office. You come in a warship and expect diplomatic courtesy after destroying our vessels? After defending ourselves from an unprovoked attack, Miller corrected calmly. We come in this ship because it's the fastest we have. Our delegation includes representatives from 12 Earth nations, as well as Science Officer Mira of your exploration vessel Horizon, who has agreed to serve as a cultural liaison. The council members murmured in surprise at the mention of a Vaughn officer working with the humans. Give us a moment to confer, Venn replied, signaling for the transmission to be muted. Defense Minister Lorne leaned forward. This could be a trick. They could be planning to attack our capital directly. If they wanted to attack, argued another council member, why announce their presence? Why not simply open fire? They've demonstrated they have the capability. Venn considered this. Allow a small delegation to dock. Maximum security. We will hear what they have to say. An hour later, Captain Miller stood in the Grand Council chamber with Lieutenant Rodriguez and 3 civilian diplomats from Earth. Science Officer Mira stood slightly apart, clearly uncomfortable but determined. The chamber was designed to impress, with soaring ceilings and elaborate decorations showing the history of the Vaughn Confederation. The 7 council members sat on elevated platforms looking down at the humans. High Counselor Venn spoke first. State your purpose, humans. Miller stepped forward. We come to establish peace between Earth and the Vaughn Confederation, to declare our sovereignty and independence, and to discuss reparations for your unprovoked attack on our planet, which resulted in the deaths of hundreds of our people. Reparations? Lorne scoffed. You destroyed our ships. After you destroyed our space station and attacked our military bases. Rodriguez countered. We responded in self-defense with remarkable restraint. Before the debate could escalate, the chamber doors slid open. Admiral Torque strode in, his uniform disheveled from his hasty journey. High Counselor, he called out, do not listen to these humans. They are dangerous beyond measure. Mira stepped forward. They are dangerous only when threatened, Admiral. I have spent time among them. They treated the crews you abandoned with respect and care. You abandoned your own people? Venn asked, turning to Torque with surprise. Torque faltered. I made a strategic decision for the good of the mission. Miller watched this exchange with interest. The dynamics of the Confederation were becoming clearer. Perhaps there were fractures he could use to humanity's advantage. High Counselor, Miller said, before we proceed further, there's something you should know. While we've been talking, Earth has been decoding your communication networks. We've discovered something concerning at the edge of your territory. Miller nodded to Rodriguez, who activated a small projector. A 3-dimensional map appeared showing a section of space near the Confederation border. Red dots indicated ships moving in formation. These are vessels belonging to the Drex Hive, Miller explained. According to the communications we've intercepted, they're planning an incursion into your territory within the next 30 days. The council members stared at the map in shock. How did you access this information? Lorne demanded. The same way we bypassed your fleet security systems, Rodriguez replied. Your encryption technology has critical vulnerabilities that we identified and exploited, Miller continued. We have no quarrel with the Confederation as a whole. Our issue is with the unprovoked attack on our planet. We propose an alliance instead of conflict. Alliance? Torque almost shouted. With primitives? Miller turned to face the Admiral directly. Let me be clear, Admiral. Earth has now analyzed your technology thoroughly. We've identified critical flaws in your weapon systems, your shields, your faster-than-light drives. We've already improved upon all of them. He gestured to the 3-dimensional map. We detected this Drex fleet when your own systems missed it. What does that tell you about who is primitive and who is advanced? The chamber fell silent. Mira spoke into the quiet. Council members, I've seen the human world. They are not what we thought. They are divided, yes, but their divisions drive innovation. They compete and challenge each other. They question everything, including their own assumptions. She pointed to the human delegation. They could have destroyed our ships and killed our people. Instead, they rescued them. They offered medical care. They treated us with dignity. High Counselor Venn studied the humans thoughtfully. What exactly are you proposing, Captain Miller? Peace, trade, cultural exchange, recognition of Earth's sovereignty, and perhaps, given the Drex threat, military cooperation, Miller replied. His expression remained calm. We don't want conflict with the Vaughn Confederation. We want to join the galactic community, but as equals, not subjects. The negotiations lasted through the day and into the night. Admiral Torque attempted to interrupt several times, but was eventually ordered to remain silent by the High Counselor. As the talks progressed, the atmosphere in the chamber slowly shifted from hostility to cautious interest. The human delegation presented examples of Earth culture, science, and art. They shared innovations that impressed even the most skeptical council members. When Mira presented her analysis of human psychology and social structures, many of the council members began to understand why Admiral Torque's conventional approach had failed so dramatically. They prepare for the worst while hoping for the best, she explained. They imagine disasters before they happen so they can prevent them. Their entertainment is filled with stories of alien invasions and apocalyptic scenarios, not because they want these things to happen, but because they're mentally rehearsing how to survive them. Late in the proceedings, Defense Minister Lorne, who had been the most hostile to the humans, asked a direct question. If we had simply approached Earth peacefully, what would have happened? Miller smiled. We would have been suspicious at first, cautious, but eventually we would have welcomed you. Humanity has been hoping to find other intelligent life for centuries. Then why build warships in secret? Lorne pressed. Because while we hoped for peace, we prepared for war, Miller replied honestly. It's what humans do. As dawn broke over the capital station, the formal agreement was signed. Earth was recognized as a sovereign and independent world. The Confederation agreed to reparations for the attack, and a joint task force was established to address the Drex threat. As the human delegation prepared to return to the Thunderbolt, High Counselor Venn approached Miller privately. You've changed the Confederation today, Captain, he said. Some will resist, but many already see the wisdom in this new approach. Miller nodded. Adaptation is the key to survival, Counselor. Humans understand that better than most. Weeks later, the Thunderbolt returned to Earth orbit. On the bridge, Miller and Rodriguez watched as the blue planet grew larger on the view screen. Do you think it will last? Rodriguez asked. This piece? Miller considered the question. I think it has a chance. The Vaughn aren't evil, just set in their ways. Meeting the Drex together will either strengthen our alliance or break it. And Admiral Torque? She asked. Miller smiled. Currently serving as the Vaughn ambassador to Earth by order of the High Counselor. A fitting assignment, I think. As Earth filled the view screen, Miller felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Humanity had faced its first major extraterrestrial threat, and not only survived, but thrived. They had shown the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. Take us home, Lieutenant, he ordered. I believe we've earned some rest before the real work begins. The Thunderbolt descended toward the planet that had, in a matter of days, become a recognized power in the galaxy. Not through conquest, but through the uniquely human combination of preparation, innovation, and the balanced application of strength and compassion. High above, the stars seemed a little less distant, a little less mysterious, and far more within reach.